This week on the Nonprofit News Feed, my name is George Weiner, the Chief Whaler of Whole Whale. I have Nick Azoulay, Digital Strategist at Whole Whale. Well, we're geeking out to nonprofit news because that's what we do every single week. But first, Nick, what are we excited about at good old Whole Whale right now?
Oh, George, well, we are so excited because now, back with new functionality, more GPTs, updated design, and increased power, is causewriter.ai, your one-stop shop for supercharging your organization with tailor-made AI assistants. We've been doing so much work on the back end of this tool, making it better, making it faster, cleaner, more usable for our clients and for you. So visit us at causewriter.ai for this awesome tool by Whole Whale to help your organization work more efficiently and not harder, but smarter.
Always adding new things. A lot of free tools also at causewriter.ai/resources like this delicious pie chart maker, which I'm particularly proud of because it's something we built. All right, Nick, I will kick off our news because I was kind of our news in that I'm trying to raise a little bit more awareness about the more dynamic types of AI plus social engineering attacks that are targeting small, mid-sized businesses and nonprofits. And in a nutshell, we were contacted for and with a fake RFP opportunity. And this person had a fake LinkedIn profile. I mean, they had messaged us. They had said, hey, go get this Dropbox link. There was real assets from Banana Republic actually baked in and around it. They were going back and forth with us. I sent them a fake RFP because I was just I'm a goofball. I play with things on the internet. And I was like, how far are you going to take this? And they're like, yeah, but you should really download this this RFP. I was like, well, no, not going to do that because it would have entered us into a type of security risk called key logging, most likely local software that would have monitored and reported back out all of the keystrokes of my keyboard and eventually given away logins to a number of critical things, bank accounts, not limited to a number of other key critical files. Bad, 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 bad. And the truth is these things are just going to get more and more sophisticated as we go on, and AI is going to inform hey, let's have a client meeting. Let's have a potential lead meeting. And they'll be like, hey, can you open this file? And it's all just one long con to get you to download things. So I ultimately think that it's a combination of how do we protect against this? One, it's the the software that lives between your ears for all of the staff. Yeah, sure, I can give you programs and things that can defend it. But ultimately, I think we got to step up our game as folks that work in organizations that deal with the outside world, that especially those that are agencies for dealing with this. Nick, I feel like you have a personal story about a lesson you learned about phishing.
George, that is true because the cybersecurity experts here at Whole Whale from time to time see how robust our social engineering resilience is as a company. And I got an email when I first started as a young intern or fellow here at Whole Whale purporting to be George, well, you, asking for login credentials for a tool that we use fairly regularly. And being the diligent and efficient intern I was, I gave it right back to you. As it turns out, that was a social engineered phishing attempt. That was you pretending to be a scammer, successfully getting me to give away sensitive information. And that is a classic phishing attempt. We all get those emails, those scam emails, but some are better than others. And quite frankly, George, they're getting really good. You actually, in this video, talked with Joshua Pesky of Roundtable Technology, who talked about ways to identify types of phishing scams. In this case, we were able to look at awkward email domains, the use of large executable files and download packages, suspicious LinkedIn profiles that didn't add up. There's a lot of red flags, but the lesson is that I learned very well is that it's really important not to share sensitive information ever over email or anything that you are not 100% is secure. I will say in my defense, it actually was you I was sending that information to, but the lesson still holds never to do that over email.
Yeah, I see another common attack for nonprofits that I've heard of, which is they'll send a message from the CEO spoofing like, "Hey, my work email got logged out. I need you to send a couple of gift cards to this client that I'm working with. Can you send this directly via gift card?" So, anytime if it smells weird, it is weird, and it's better to sort of have a culture of safety that can question things when they seem off, rather than of extreme, compliance of like do whatever they say no matter what without thinking. We have to do the thinking more so than ever, and also be careful about new employees too. Which reminds me, I should try to hack our new employees. Note to self.
Oh
They definitely
boy,
don't listen to
no.
this, so I'm like, I'm safe on it. I think I may go
You
with an
are.
alternate email address. This is my favorite one. I'll go with the alternate email address and do the like, hey, I got locked out. Can you give me the login to this or that real quickly? Yeah, I think that's I mean, it's easy. It's quick and easy. Spin up an email, use my email address.
It's
I was doing it. I was like, oh, I could do an AI version of my voice and send a message. Yeah, it's just so much work.
Oh man, George, you bring up a good point though. A lot of AI experts who are paying close attention to cybersecurity actually say that AI enabled social engineering scams are probably some of the most devastating cybersecurity vulnerabilities, as opposed to like, hacking or like any kind of crazy stuff. It's really that, right? AI enables anyone, even people who don't speak fluent English, to fluently engineer you into thinking that you're a colleague, etc. So AI is definitely increasing the risk profile for scams that are phishing, social engineering, etc.
Yeah, and the thing that Joshua from Roundtable was able to like show us very quickly, like one of these is his AI avatar, and one of them is real, and just had a live Zoom conversation with him. So, using a tool called HeyGen.ai, you can quickly spin up without permission a image replicant video of someone and mimic their voice. So you're like, oh boy, uh, you know, we we have got ultimately to train our teams to be suspicious of this, and it's disproportionately leveraging things like power dynamics, urgency, and order to get compliance to do a thing, download a thing, pass over credentials, or buy something you shouldn't.
Absolutely, George. Great lessons learned. I know you're secretly happy that you got that in your inbox. Like, oh, this will be a little project.
That's because I need another project, right?
Exactly. All right, George, I'll take us to our next story. This one comes from ABC News, reporting that Melinda French Gates has pledged an additional $250 million to support women's health globally through an open call for nonprofits to apply for funding. This initiative is part of a larger $1 billion commitment that French Gates made in May to support women and families worldwide. Now, the grant competition, called Action for Women's Health, will be run by Lever for Change and will provide at least 100 nonprofit organizations with unrestricted funding ranging from $1 million to $5 million. There's a lengthy application, there's a review period, and I think it goes until the end of 2025. So you're not getting this dough tomorrow. But the move signals a new focus for French Gates organization, Pivotal Ventures, which previously concentrated on advancing women's power in the US. Historically, George, giving organizations serving women and girls has represented less than 2% of all charitable gifts in the United States, even though investment in women's empowerment is some of the most effective social impact strategies that we have. So really awesome work coming from Melinda French Gates.
Yeah, and it's I don't think an accident if we're talking about the open call for actions here, where you see this like Lever for Change nonprofit affiliated with MacArthur Foundation running it, and it has previously worked with Mackenzie Scott to award the 40 million in 2019. So I am very excited to see this approach of like, hey, let's open this up, demystify the process of philanthropy, and give more folks the chance to apply. I wonder how many applications they'll get. They'll be pretty busy.
They'll be pretty busy. And George, that's a good point, because when Mackenzie Scott first started doing her philanthropy, She was kind of like the charitable fairy godmother. Suddenly, nonprofits would wake up with like $5 to $10 million richer.
Yeah.
Which, you know, great, but also you and I know that this puts strains on organizations. It strains operational capacity, demands for effectiveness, et cetera, et cetera. So it's great to see a little bit more agency being given to organizations to apply for this themselves, with added transparency, opportunity, all that good stuff.
Awesome.
All right. Our next story, George, comes from The New Humanitarian, which is a great news source for any kind of humanitarian global NGO news. And usually it more caters to the NGO sector, the global humanitarian sector. But I thought that this report was actually really important because there's some worldwide studies that are showing some important trends. And The New Humanitarian in this piece dissected challenges to the global humanitarian sector in a new report done by Development Initiatives, which I believe was out of the UK. And the report revealed record-wide funding gaps in the global humanitarian sector. UN appeals only got 45% funded in 2023, right? So you see on the news, wars in Sudan, of course, war in Gaza, all sorts of humanitarian issues, violence and humanitarian crisis in Haiti. All these issues need funding, right? And it seems that that apparatus is under a tremendous amount of strain. The analysis shows, additionally, that 91% of requested funds are now for protracted crises lasting 5 years or longer, up from 29% in 2014. That means that crises themselves are getting longer. They're not getting solved. And that's putting a tremendous amount of strain, right? The Ukraine war is sucking up a tremendous amount of resources, straining the system. Now there's war in Gaza. Now there's civil war in Sudan. And the system's not designed for this many number of protracted crises simultaneously, it would seem. Additional layers here are that funding to local aid organizations remained at just 4.4%, despite years-old targets for improvement. Now, George, you might be saying, hey, most of our listeners are local US NGOs and nonprofits. What does this mean for them? But I think these conversations are actually really relevant. They're just happening at a bigger scale, right? There's lots of conversations around transparency, the parent organization, and then local grassroots organizations. There's that tension playing out in the humanitarian sector that I think also plays out locally here in the States. Questions around efficiency, funding targets, those conversations that are happening in the humanitarian sector, now that it's under strain, I think mirror pretty closely the similar types of conversations many US nonprofits are having. And it's worth keeping an eye on these trends for that reason.
It seems to also be pointing toward a consolidation of national groups rather than localization solutions, and it's a hyper consolidation in times of war and instability. Is that a fair assessment too?
Yeah, I think it is, George. And part of the reason is because, let's say, providing aid in a conflict crisis, you have local organizations in Ukraine, but in terms of bigger organizations, there's only a certain number of organizations that have the resources and logistics capability to serve these crises. So it's straining the system, and really only the big guys are able to keep up, is my understanding.
Yeah, I think also in the periods of time where you've got more people in these disputed territories into war situations, you've got the leveling down of where we can focus on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs for as many people as possible. When you're talking about like, hey, like forget about education. If we're talking about like, hey, like let's get these people food because they're starving and we can't get resources across no man's lands and into contested territories. So it just the trickle down. I didn't realize also involved the sort of starving of cash for local organizations that probably do that last mile work of making sure that a resource makes it to a family inside of a community. And I think that kind of thing is concerning. I didn't realize that was another factor going on. You really do.
Yeah.
You bring a lot of the new humanitarian to bear in our stuff.
I do. I mean, George, this is what I study to an extent, and something I think about a lot, because quite frankly, I think global conflicts have never strained the system in this way for decades, and I think we're seeing that. And you talked about the last mile effects. To your point, it's hard to focus on sustainable long-term development when conflicts are so bad that humanitarian and aid workers can't even get there. Last year has been one of the deadliest years for UN and humanitarian workers on record across the world. Pretty dire circumstances that shift from long-term building up of communities to, quite frankly, disaster and like immediate crisis response.
Yeah. All right. What do you got on Feel Good?
All right. We need one. We need to feel good after that. So this one comes from the Alabama Reflector, and it talks about several nonprofit groups in Alabama having launched the Defend the Ballot initiative, aimed at increasing voter participation amid new state laws that critics view as restrictive. So the platform provides voters with information on registration, status, candidates, ballot access, as well as helps voters maintain their rights, fights things like data mining and all that good stuff, right? And the effort seeks to address Alabama's low voter turnout, which 33% in the 22 midterms compared to the national average of 46%. So Alabama definitely has a turnout problem. Always awesome to see organizations helping folks get to the ballot box. And we're just a couple weeks away now. Can't wait for it to be over. But definitely a lot of folks working very hard to do the right thing in this run up to the election.
Yeah, you said it. Well, looking forward to getting past this election and playing by whatever the new rules are. Let's get there. It's such a difficult time to plan for anything beyond the edge of our nose right now. All right. Oh, I didn't want to see the dad joke. I almost revealed it. What do we got for our nonprofit dad joke?
All right, George, I got you. Where did the scammers trying to extort the nonprofits end up?
I do not know. Where did the scammers end up?
Sleeping with the fishes.
Oh, I see how you spelled fishes too.
Fishes with the PH. They're fishing. They like fishing. Now they're
That's
one of them.
Exactly where you're gonna sleeps with the fishes.
Yeah, I'm from New York.
You're getting better.
You
You're getting better. This is getting better. I don't know. Well, people made it to the end. Huzzah! You get a bad joke. All right, Nick. Thanks.
Thanks, George.